episode of the Beer Leaguer Podcast. Once again, joined by Mason.
Hey.
And this time out, we're going to talk about something in somewhat recent history that we've done. And kind of review that and talk about going to out-of-town tournaments. And all the things around that, the good, the bad, just kind of our thoughts on one that we just recently went to.
Let's do it.
All right, so I want to start with what we did. We're recording this. What, it's been about 2 weeks now. Has it been since we got back? 2 weeks that we just came back from the second of two out of town tournaments we did in the last month and a half. And this was if you guys know BLPA, they put on tournaments, and this was a tournament that we did with them. It was down in Columbus, Ohio. And while we were there, unlike some other tournaments that we've played in, and we'll talk about some of these things, this was a tournament where it was some guys from our team along with guys from another team. It was kind of two teams smashed together to make one team, and that's how it was put together. So a little bit different than some of the other things that we've done. But yeah, I don't know, Mason, kind of hear your thoughts just on that specific tournament in general, like how it was run, how games were done, how it was put together, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is the second time we've done BLPA tournaments, and I think they're run pretty well. There's some typical complaints you get from all tournaments where they're not within your league or whatever, is the competition's not on par necessarily. I mean, we were pretty level with one team and every other team kind of kicked our ass. But I mean, everything was communicated pretty well. We actually had one of our games got moved mid-morning. We were on our way to the rink and it got moved, and that got communicated out fairly well, I guess. But the tournament was a lot of fun. It was cool hanging out with all the guys, and I imagine we'll circle back to this, but it takes me back to the podcast we did about building a team and how you have little niches in the team, because we were put together from two teams. So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing from it. But yeah, I'd agree. I think these are always well-run events for stuff. That was it. And it was kind of nice to see that they had kind of a big problem where one of the rinks was not ready to go because it was split at two rinks. So it wasn't ready to go. And I guess they let people know. It was about an hour and a half or so, I think, before the games were supposed to start. We had the first game of the day there. And they let the guy who was kind of the point person for our team know. And he got that information out. And the nice thing of that, besides, we had to switch rinks for whatever, that's fine, is we got to play at the Blue Jackets practice facility, which that's cool if that's where you get dumped at.
Yeah.
So
you were driving, but my biggest concern was oh shit, we're going to be downtown, and we're going to have to pay for parking. It's going to be a nightmare, which it was
for some
but not
people.
For us, it was really cool. So when we got rerouted, we went to our first rink because we're early guys. We got there an hour early, and we're planning to get there an hour.
An hour early is still late to me, but yeah.
And we pulled in. The guy's oh, hey, you're going to be at a different rink. Did they tell you that? Oh, okay. Oh, can you hold here? Because we might need you to take an iPad over there for us. Okay, just wait here. I'm going to go inside with my headphones and talk to somebody. And, we waited around, talked to our other teammates, and went over there. We got some good information, parking was validated at their special parking lot, which turned out great. I don't think you had to pay, right? Just
nope.
Yeah. No pay, so that was great, and it was cool because it was a nice day out. You could see right downtown from within the rink, Blue Jackets practice facility. The whole experience was pretty cool.
Got to drive by a marathon. that was going on?
Exactly. I was going to say plug for using Waze as your official navigation app. We're not sponsored by Waze yet, but yeah, we totally rerouted around the Columbus Marathon. Our another teammate of ours got stuck on it, and they it took him an hour to get to the game because he
They
kept
got
hitting.
like for us it was no problem. We thought it was no big deal.
Yeah.
They got stuck like on the other side of the marathon route, and then basically went all the way around the marathon. Realized they couldn't go any further, and then had to go backtrack around to where they. And I think basically wound up coming where we went to.
Yeah.
So yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So I mean, like, I give all credit to them for the guys that do the BLPA tournament, then for setting that up real nice. And it's it's a pretty typical tournament setup. It's like a Friday, Saturday. You play 3 games. Sunday is all the playoff games and everything, which we've never experienced. But they sound neat. And then their big thing that they do is Saturdays is like a cookout, which it's the simplest thing, but it's a nice thing. They just do like some burgers and hot dogs on a grill, and they have a kiddie pool filled with beer and pop, and it's just kind of there for, during the day if you want to do it between games, after games. People hang out in the parking lot. Like people have music going. Some people have like party tents set up. Some people just sleep sprawled out in their truck beds. Whatever. But it's a pretty cool thing. It's a neat thing. It's like a pretty straightforward tournament, I think, as far as things go, because it's like normal hockey. Whereas the tournament we played before that was like a half ice 3-on-3 with goalies tournament. That was, it's super fun, but it's like a different setup. Like that's something different. Whereas this is pretty straight ahead, just hockey kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. I think that's kind of the review of it. I give a thumbs up for the BLPA folks for setting that up.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
they're doing one in Cleveland, which I'm excited. I would be cool if we get a team together for.
Yes, they're doing it because they do 2 different things. They do they call them Dex tournaments, which are draft tournaments, and then these are called their Bash tournaments, and these are just like bring your team and play kind of things. Yeah. So never done a draft tournament, but we've done these Bash ones, and yeah, I'm sure we'll play another one. So with that, like you mentioned, because this was an out of town tournament, that's kind of what we wanted to focus on, is playing in out of town tournaments and all the machinations and decisions that you have to make along with that. And I think the first thing when you're looking at playing in out of town tournaments, I think there's one big decision you have to make up front, is if you're playing in the tournament, or even in town, this is, I guess, any tournament, really is, are you playing in the tournament to try and win the whole thing? Or are you playing in the tournament to have fun getting to play hockey? Because I think that decision leads you down two very different paths.
Yeah.
Decision making. Because if you're trying to play in the tournament and you're playing to win, of course you always want to win. But I'm saying if that's your main purpose, if you're playing to win, I think that leads you probably more towards the idea of, because it's the question after that then is who you go to the tournament with.
Yeah.
And I think that leads you very much of are you taking kind of just your regular team to the tournament, or are you doing like trying to put together like an all-star team mishmash of people? If you're really trying to win in some of these tournaments, unless you're like a top team in your division, especially like we play in lower divisions, so it's kind of hard to. Lower divisions are always kind of a mess at these things because people always say they're low division and then they're not, and all it takes is like one really good player to really make a difference. Whereas upper divisions is a lot easier because it's less of a difference. Because if you're like, I'm taking my whole team, we're trying to be competitive. We're all a bunch of guys that played in high school together, and half of us played college hockey, and that's the same kind of people we're playing against. Like that's an easier level set than what we play in, which is a combination of people that have never played hockey, people that started hockey within the last year, some guy that played high school hockey, but that was 30 years ago. Somebody that played, on a club team in college 10 years ago. And you kind of get all those thrown in. So it's, but I think, would you agree? Like, I think that's the first thing you have to ask is, are you going to be competitive and that's what you care about versus, hang out and have fun?
Yeah.
And if you're going with the be competitive, it's really hard. I think a lot of these things, like I said, unless you're an upper team or you're a team that's like really just dominating your local stuff, to take your team to it. I think that's really hard. You kind of do have to do a mishmash of people.
Yeah, I feel like you always have to have every team that we've played that goes on to win has a ringer, regardless if they try to weed out ringers or whatever at your tournament.
Yeah.
Like you have to get a ringer or two. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so then you kind of have to go on kind of building a team, and then it's how do you put a team together? Do you get like we were basically two teams put together.
Yeah.
Because the other team, we did this with them last year. They just didn't have enough guys, and so they reached out to me, going, "Hey, we need 4 or 5 guys that that might be interested." And I just grabbed 4 or 5 guys from our team that I thought would want to do it and be able to do it, and that's how I put the team together. Other like one of the teams we played against that we know the guys on, they're guys that mostly play in a really random pickup. Like that's what the team was. That's how it started. It was just guys that play in a pickup, and they built a team out of that. That's probably about as randomly organized as you can get. Besides like a random team of free agents that they usually do with these things. But I think that's, how you getting that together. And it's also to a thing of if you're putting a team together versus having your own team, how much time are you spending with these people?
Yeah.
Because if you're putting a team together and you don't know the people, that can be really weird. Because in these situations, like this is why I say for an out of town tournament specifically, because if you're at a tournament at home, you may or may not hang out with these people. I mean, you might go home between games. Whereas this is everybody staying, everybody drove a couple hours to get there. And so you're probably going to hang out with people. Maybe you don't want to. You have to think about that. Like when you're putting the team together is if you want to, and that, leads into, I think, kind of how you pick people. I'm sure you've heard my criteria always with stuff. I think you've heard me say it a bunch of times is that person a good hang? That's what I always say, because that's something that we look for, or at least I look for with things of somebody that's fun to hang out with. And because I think that's a big fun of it is getting to hang out and, doing stuff. And that also leads into the planning of it. Where are you staying?
Yeah.
How are you getting there? If you're with a bunch of people, I love getting an Airbnb that can fit everybody.
Yeah. Seconded.
Like, I think that's a ton of fun, to just all kind of hang out. Like we just did, we all hung out, not the whole team, but our group from the team had an Airbnb together. We hung out there the whole time. We, there's a pizza place, like right down the block, went and got pizza, hung out, watch NHL playoffs. I think that's a ton of fun to do that.
Yeah, we usually get a little buzzed and play video games late into the night too. This time it was NHL playoffs, like you said, which was good too. But at Buffalo, we all stayed up, watched the late game, the movie The Late Game, not the actual late game, and play video games. That was a ton of fun.
And to me, that's a huge part of these tournaments is getting to do stuff like that. Is that portion of it, which you can't really do at a hotel.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you could try, right? But it's like a mixed bag whether or not you get like conjoining rooms or rooms that are even remotely close together. But,
and then you try and cram everybody into one room, which usually doesn't work. Or I've done this at tournaments where everybody will go hang out in the there'll be like a party room in the lobby, and everybody will just kind of take over the party room and hang out. Yeah. But you have to be real careful because you're mostly just sitting in there drinking, and you can't get too loud because they'll come kick you out. But that was really cool. Like we did that up one year in Toronto. A bunch of us stayed in the same hotel, and that's where we hung out. And we actually met a team that we wound up playing later in the tournament. you met them there, and we're hanging out with them, and got to hear all their kind of stuff that they were doing, and it was a neat thing.
Yeah,
that's not something you're going to get at like an Airbnb, a Vrbo, or whatever other Airbnb
Vrbo.
clones there are out there.
Yeah,
but it's a lot easier to from a planning standpoint. It's, as saying someone that usually plans all this stuff, it's a lot easier to plan hotels because you can usually just say, here's the hotels, guys, you handle it yourselves, find a roommate.
Yeah, you're on your own. Yeah.
Whereas like these shared places, it's okay, let's find something close to the rink, which they don't ever give you addresses, so you just kind of have to take a guess. You have to find something, depending on how many people you have. If you have a lot of people, it can be tough.
Yeah.
Like finding one of those a shared housing area that's for like 2 or 3 people, easy.
Yep.
4, 5, 6, 7 starts to get sketch and hard. Honestly, large amounts of people, it's actually pretty easy too, but those places are expensive. So people don't use them. Like if you have a whole team, like a dozen people staying somewhere.
Yeah, and you have to consider bathrooms, and because sometimes the bedding situation is fairly easy or straightforward, but then bathrooms can be a huge contention point. Even if you shower at the rink, like some guy's got to drop a deuce, and like that's your only bathroom. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I think if you're looking at staying at a place like that versus a hotel, is yes, pay attention to bathrooms and full baths. Pay attention to how many there are, with how many people you're going to have, and make sure that it kind of makes sense. Yeah. I know Airbnb is actually really good about this. Look at, even though it says this place sleeps how many people, look at how many actual beds there are and what the bed setup is. Because some of these places will say, oh, we sleep 8 people, but we assume that like we have a king bed in one bedroom. We assume 4 people are sleeping in that bed. And then we have 3, we have a pull-out couch and a twin bed in another room, and we figure that can handle 3 people. Yeah, some places will do that. So look at that, and make sure that kind of works, and then also hope that it's right. Because we've stayed at places where it's not accurate. Yeah, they say like, oh, there's 5 bedrooms, and you're like, where? There's not 5, they're like, there's 5 bedrooms, 5 beds. No, there's not. Yeah, there is not. So it's you kind of have to plan all that, and then so I think that's stuff to look at when you're looking to stay at not a hotel, looking at those types of things. Yeah. Then there's kind of also with that, and also just general stuff. I think if you're looking for like an Airbnb or something, make sure it's not creepy. We've stayed at places that are a little creepy, but to me they're not creepy because I've also stayed at hostels. So
yeah, it's like by trying to look at a new house online. It's like, oh, this looks great in the pictures, and you get there, and there's like creepy children paintings on the walls, and there's rat poop everywhere. It totally didn't happen at all. There's mystery bugs on the ceiling. Yeah, it can get.
These are super random things you're coming up with that have no relation to anything that we've experienced. Yeah, it's tougher. There's more work with like an Airbnb, but it can be, and the same thing with Vrbo. I've looked at Vrbos. I've never stayed at one. But you have to do a lot more research on the places, but they can be significantly cheaper. You can get everybody in one spot. Hopefully, you can have nice stuff like, hey, we had a grill at our place in Columbus. We could have grilled out if we wanted to. We had a little decking area, which was nice. So stuff like that. And you have, especially for a tournament, I think this is a big thing, have a place to kind of hang your gear. Yeah. Because you can't do it in a hotel room. It kind of sucks though. You can do the flip over a ironing board, hang your gear on it, or hang all your gear in a bathroom or something like that. Yeah. But it's kind of nice if you have a house that you're staying at and you have like a big deck or something, or even in the driveway, lay all your gear out in the sun.
Yeah. It never gets dry in a hotel room. Maybe you don't care. But it like never gets dry in a hotel room, and your hotel room just kind of smells funny, and it's like more humid, and it's worse because it's your sweat It's making it humid.
Well, because you always have the person that puts their like, oh, I'm gonna put my gloves on the heater and turn the heater up in the hotel
Yeah,
room.
right, exactly.
Then go to lunch and then you come back and like, ugh.
And then it's
Ugh.
hot. It's an 80-degree day outside, and you walk into your hotel room, it's 80 degrees still, and it smells like butt.
And then your gloves are just hot and wet. Yeah. So I personally, I'm a big Airbnb fan. I think they're great, especially for stuff like this.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more work that goes into it, and then one person kind of has to foot the bill for the whole thing, and then everybody pay them back, which probably is what's happening for a tournament anyways. So.
Yeah, I think there's a way to split it, but it's already like hurting cats trying to get these things together. So that would be a whole nother thing to tackle. But
yeah, but like I said, if you have whoever's already paying for the tournament, if they can also foot the bill for that, then it's really easy to just say, hey, everything costs this.
Right.
Another thing that comes up with planning that goes in with if you're looking at hotels, looking at Airbnb or whatever, is I think this all kind of ties together and depending who you're taking to the tournament and how you're planning all this stuff out, is who the people are bringing if they're bringing somebody with them to the tournament.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other wrinkle that you have to solve before you can do anything else. Because if people are like bringing their families with them, they're probably not staying with you in an Airbnb.
Right. Exactly.
I'm just assuming that people aren't going to want to stay with a team. Maybe if you get a huge Airbnb or if everybody has a family. But, so maybe they're staying separately, which then does that make sense to everybody just stay separately? Or does it make sense for everybody to stay in a hotel if they're going to have a family with them?
Yeah.
And I'll tie this in with the other thing that I always think about this is how is everybody getting there?
Yeah.
It's out-of-town tournament. Everybody's got to get there somehow. So,
it
is everybody just drive themselves, which maybe if the tournament's not that far away, not a big deal. Do people, a couple people carpool together? Does everybody pile into one minivan and hope that everything fits? Do you rent a little bus to take everybody? But I think that goes into the thing of, where are you staying? Who's bringing people or not bringing people? And how you kind of plan that out.
Yeah. Carpool is nice, but getting people to commit sometimes is a little painful. It was nice. I have a minivan. I'll own up to it. It was nice in Buffalo. I would shuttle people around to restaurants and stuff, so it's a little more time to like hang out. That was pretty cool. So if you have somebody with a high capacity vehicle, make them drive. It's always worth it
if you can. But unfortunately, most of the people that have high capacity vehicles are the people that probably are more likely to bring families with them.
Yeah.
So it's usually how that works.
Usually, I left mine at home this time.
You did. But I think that's kind of the juggling act. I think for out of town tournaments is, to me, that's the big planning stuff of like which avenue you're going to build a team. Then from that, you have to go, okay, it's a team that probably I want to hang out with. I mean, if you're just going with like completely just like a team of mercenaries where you're like, I just want to win a tournament, I don't care, I hate all these people, but they're like the best players I know, then I guess who cares? And just everybody show up. I don't care how you get there.
Yeah.
If you want to sleep in your car, I don't care. And you could, that's like the one extreme. And then the other end of it would be we're going to rent a bus and everybody's hopping in the bus and we have an Airbnb that, sleeps 12 people, because those are totally out. Like those are out there, because I know teams that get those for things. And everybody's on one bus to get down there. And I guess that's the other extreme. And I don't know. I prefer the everybody gets on one bus thing. I think that's better.
It's funny. If you had asked me a couple of years ago, I'd rather just go by myself and hang out, like go to a restaurant and then like kind of do my own thing. But I definitely like spend more time with the boys. Saturdays are for the boys.
Well, I think that's the thing, is this is kind of the only time you get to do that. Like we hang out after, like before hockey a little bit and after hockey and stuff and get through that kind of stuff. But that's a pretty limited amount, and that's like once a week. Other things. This is kind of the only time you get to do any like real hangout. Like you referenced back to the locker room episode. We talked about that. Like that's a big thing. But that's what makes stuff fun in the locker room is getting to know people. Yeah. And honestly, you're only going to know people so much from, even if you just go out after a game, spending an hour and a half at a bar after the game or something like that. You're only going to learn so much about them. Whereas if you're spending a weekend with somebody, you learn a lot about them and you have a lot of stuff to talk about. You wind up having hopefully a lot more common interests and you don't hate everybody after that.
Yeah.
I hope.
Or you hate everyone more.
I don't think I've turned around and hated everybody after one of these away tournaments. I don't think I have.
Yeah. Cover your butt. This is public.
But I think I've hated everybody the same amount as I did when we were going up.
That's fair.
When I say this as the person that usually does all the planning.
Yeah.
Like I usually have the crap job of coordinating all this stuff of,
yeah.
How's everybody, where are we staying? How's everybody getting there? Oh, you're bringing your spouse? Okay. What's their phone number in case I need to get a hold of them because I can't get a hold of you?
Yeah.
It's yeah. I don't know. What are some of your other thoughts on doing this? Because we've been through a couple of these. We've done the couple different ways. We've even done in the past, the full team tournaments out of the country.
Yep.
And that's a whole nother thing that's like a much bigger trip. And that's a lot. People are a lot more likely to bring families on that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I definitely miss our international tournaments. Those are always fun because there's a lot. We go to the Great White North. There's a lot more hockey stores up there. I do miss that. I would recommend any Canadian tournaments for that sole reason. But yeah, I mean, I would say like even if you're a guy who brings their family, like make some time to hang out. If you stay at the same hotel, like pop over for a couple hours, hang out with your friends, go get a team dinner, whether it's takeout or restaurant. Like that's awesome. I think one thing that we haven't done, which would be cool to do if we did like a more local tournament or took more of like our core team, is like hang out in the parking lot and kind of do like a tailgate kind of thing. That's what a lot of these BLPA bash people seem to do. They like just kind of congregate and hang out, play games, like kids are running around. I think that could be a fun thing to do at a tournament.
You want to go grab some kids to have them run around it?
Well, as my kid would get older, if there are other kids their age on the team, run around, play together, you're sitting there drinking beers with your boys. It's a lot of fun.
I'm trying to think if anybody else
that drinks a lot of beer.
I'm trying to think if we have any other kids that would be running around. I don't think we do.
Oh, we have a few, but they're older than mine.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it would just be your kid. I think everybody else's kids are too old to be running around. I mean, somebody's kid plays with us in these tournaments.
Yeah.
So
I
think that makes a big difference though too of where you're staying with stuff. Like we kind of did all that, but we were back at our Airbnb.
Yeah.
So it's like would you rather sit in the parking lot and do that or sit in the Airbnb and do that? And I'm like, I'd rather sit in the Airbnb.
Yeah. As an introvert who is used to our team, I agree. I could see an extrovert may want to sit in the parking lot and get to know other teams. That's not me.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that's the difference there. It's one of those things to consider is that's knowing your team too that you're going with.
Right.
Right. Of people, would they want to hang out like that? Because honestly, for me, it's a thing too of when you're planning this stuff is it's silly to look at hotel versus Airbnb and stuff. If no one's going to hang out there, if it's just a place to sleep, then you should go with whatever the cheapest option is.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are going to like the tournament we went to, if you're going to do something like where, hey, we showed up Friday, played our game, we're going out to eat right afterwards, or we're going to hang in the parking lot and then go out to eat. And then we're just going to go back to wherever we're staying, sleep, get up, and then go spend the day at the rink, then it would make sense to, just go cheapest option you can possibly get.
Right.
Because you're not spending any time there. So who cares? Like, who cares if you have a grill at an Airbnb because you're not going to be using it? Who cares if you're just staying at like the cheapest hotel you can find in the area because you're just sleeping there.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that kind of covers everything. Unless you have any other thoughts for what to consider, what to think about with it, away tournaments, stuff that you think has gone really well, really poorly.
I'm trying to think. I would say thoroughly vet your Airbnb if you can. That's the only downside to our Buffalo tournament that we did, was like the Airbnb was sketchy, but
I didn't think it was sketchy, but
but that brings its own level of bonding. Like, we're gonna talk crap about this Airbnb for the next 5 years, so like, I mean, it just adds to the experience. But I always enjoy going to a nice hockey store, like I talked about with Canadian tournaments, which we didn't do in Columbus, which was a little disappointing. Always incorporate a nice hockey stop into your trip if you can.
If you live somewhere that doesn't have a lot of hockey stores.
That's true.
If you're listening to this, and you live up in like Minnesota, and you're like, "What? There's hockey. There's like 10 hockey stores within a 5-mile radius of me." Then that doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're in like a hockey store desert. Yeah, and that's what I miss about the Toronto tournament too. Is like going to see the Hockey Hall of Fame every year, every other year. It's always a fun time.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too, is kind of see if you are, but that goes into the planning stuff of if people are going,
right.
Other people are going or not, is planning other activities around it. I mean, you could be a real like tour director and be like, all right, team, this is our itinerary. We have 4 hours between games on Saturday. We're going to go get lunch at this place, and then we're going to go check out this museum for 2 hours, come back, and I mean, you could totally do that.
I'm waiting for a tournament where you do that.
I mean, it kind of comes close, I think. I think it gets pretty close to it. Yeah, that's a little bit too much for me. I already get burned out on a lot of this stuff, trying to figure out just coordinated driving.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's the big thing, is you have to figure out all this other stuff, and then everything else kind of falls into place. That's why I kind of try to put it in like a timeline of how to figure these out, and that kind of directs what you're doing and how you're coordinating stuff. I will give my hotel tip. This is always my good hotel tip for any place that we do any kind of hockey stuff, is for hotels. Look for free parking, because you're probably going to be doing a lot of in and out stuff. So free parking usually makes a big difference. And for bigger cities, that's more of a thing. If you're playing in like smaller cities, probably free parking for sure. But bigger cities, like when we've played like outside Toronto and stuff, it's by the airport. Parking can be very prohibitively expensive. Also, look, if you, like most people, enjoy a breakfast, look for free breakfast, because that can save you a lot of money, and that can offset the more expensive hotels sometimes. Because if they have free breakfast, that's saves on that. And also, I can't believe you still have to do this, but look for free Wi-Fi. Because they're a lot. You laugh, but there are a lot of times cheaper hotels. You're like, oh, this is a really cheap hotel. This is like $30 a night cheaper than any place else. Oh, but you want Wi-Fi access? Oh, the Wi-Fi is $20 a day.
That's ridiculous.
That's still a thing, and so that's something to look for. Like I said, it's ridiculous that you look for it, but that is a thing. A lot of places will do that, and that's how they get to be cheap hotels, because they charge for parking and for Wi-Fi. And we have a breakfast buffet, but it's $10.
Yeah.
Because I do that for our one that we go up to in Canada. I always look for those, and that's always a big thing, is you can find, again, because it's by the airport and it's near Toronto, so everything's going to be expensive. But you look and they'll be like, oh, they're hotels that it's like $100 price difference a night. Stuff looks about the same. But then you look at it, and the cheap one, $40 a day for parking. Wi-Fi is $15-$20 a day. If you want to do hotel breakfast, it's going to be like $15-$20 a day, and most people want all those things. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's now as expensive or more expensive than the not cheap hotel. So
Yeah. Yep.
That's my hotel tips. All right. I think that kind of hopefully helps out people. Stuff if you're looking at doing one of these, kind of things to think about. Hopefully give you some idea of kind of a timeline and a checklist of ways to enhance your out of town hockey tournament experience with it. So once again, thanks Mason for joining this week.
Of course.
And as always, end things by saying any kind of likes, subscriptions, reviews, or text, because you can now text the show. It's in the show notes. Text the show. Tell us cool stuff. I said previously, any show ideas or compliments or complaints or cookie recipes. Send those
cookies. Yeah.
You can't send cookies, but cookie recipes.
Well, cookie recipes.
You can't text the cookie.
You're the team mom.
Yeah, I am. But yeah, so those are all appreciated, and that stuff helps the show out a ton. So it'd be great if you would do that. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Thanks everybody. Catch you in the next one.
See ya.
Saturday morning, lacing up my skates, headed to the rink, can't afford to be late. Beer league hockey, it's our favorite scene. Grinding on the ice, living out our dream. Parking lot beers, cracking open cans, laughing with the boys, we don't give a damn. Stumbling to the rink with a smile on our face, no worries in the world, just living in this space. Bad refs calling penalties that ain't even there. We're just here to have fun, we don't really care.